Oh, where do we even begin with this magnificent disaster? Commander Moran of the Zephyrian Alliance was having what you might generously call a challenging day. And by challenging, I mean his entire fleet was being turned into expensive space confetti by the Void Reapers. Delightful. Status report. Moran barked across the bridge, his forearms flailing in what could only be described as panic choreography. The bridge crew, bless their terrified hearts, scrambled to deliver news that somehow managed to get worse with every passing second. "Sir, we've lost 60% of our forward battle group," Lieutenant Cortex announced, his voice cracking like a teenage Zephyrian going through molt season. "The Void Reapers are tearing through our shields like they're made of decorative tissue paper." Ah yes, the Void Reapers. Those charming fellows who had decided that the Zephyrian Alliance's corner of the galaxy looked particularly appetizing this season. They had been systematically consuming every civilized world in their path, leaving behind nothing but empty space and the occasional floating debris field. Very artistic, in a genocidal sort of way. "What about our allies?" Moran demanded, though the way his antenna drooped suggested he already knew the answer. "The Corvan Confederacy? The Stellar Republic?" "Gone, sir," came the cheerful reply from Communications Officer Delph. "The Corvans lasted about as long as a soap bubble in a plasma storm. The Stellar Republic, well, let's just say they're more of a stellar memory now." Marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. The mighty Zephyrian Alliance, with their 1,000-year history of galactic dominance, their superior technology, their unmatched military prowess, was getting thoroughly embarrassed by a bunch of interdimensional bullies. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a ceremonial blade and serve it at a funeral feast. "Sir?" Another voice piped up from the tactical station. "The Void Reapers are deploying their harvest ships. They're beginning planetary extraction on Zephyr Prime." Moran's blood turned to ice. Zephyr Prime. The crown jewel of their civilization. The world where his 3 wives and 17 offspring were probably right now wondering why Daddy's super-advanced military couldn't stop some upstart invaders from literally eating their planet. The commander stared at the tactical display, watching red dots multiply like some sort of cosmic infection. His fleet, what remained of it, looked like a handful of minnows facing a school of plasma sharks. The mathematics of the situation were quite clear. They were, to use a technical military term, completely screwed. "Sir," came a hesitant voice from the junior communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Moran, who still had that unfortunate optimism of youth. Perhaps we should consider contacting other species for assistance." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle background noise of their ship's hull being peppered with enemy fire. Everyone knew what other species meant. There was really only one option left, one species crazy enough, violent enough, and apparently stupid enough to potentially help them. The humans. Oh, the delicious irony. The Zephyrian Alliance, who had spent decades looking down their elongated noses at those primitive bipeds from that backwater system called Sol, those barbarians who still used chemical propulsion and had only recently figured out faster-than-light travel, those absolute lunatics who apparently solved every problem by either hitting it very hard or making it explode. "The humans, sir?" Moran pressed, apparently immune to the cosmic joke of the situation. "They have been expanding their territory rapidly. Intelligence suggests they have significant military capabilities." Significant military capabilities. That was one way to put it. Another way would be to say that humans approached warfare with the enthusiasm of a child in a candy store and the subtlety of a supernova. The Galactic Intelligence Council's reports on human military activities read like horror stories written by someone with a very dark sense of humor. Commander Moran felt what remained of his dignity crumble away like ancient parchment. Here he was, a decorated officer of the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, seriously considering asking for help from a species that had only stopped throwing rocks at each other about 5 minutes ago in galactic terms. "Open a channel," he finally said, the words tasting like defeat and burnt plasma. "Send a message to the human territories." The communications officer's tentacles danced across the control panel with practiced efficiency. Static filled the bridge as the long-range transmitters struggled to reach across the vast distances of space to find someone, anyone, who might be willing to help them avoid complete annihilation. And if that someone happened to be a bunch of violent, unpredictable primates who thought war was a recreational activity, well, desperate times called for desperate measures. And the Zephyrian alliance was nothing if not desperate. The transmission began with all the dignity Moran could muster. "This is Commander Moran of the Zephyrian alliance, requesting immediate military assistance. We are under attack by hostile forces and in urgent need of support." There was a pause. Then he added the words that would haunt his nightmares for years to come. "Send us anything. We are getting slaughtered." And with that, the proud Zephyrian alliance officially swallowed what remained of their pride and threw themselves upon the mercy of the galaxy's newest and most terrifyingly enthusiastic military power. What could possibly go wrong? Admiral Vashi had overseen first contact protocols with 47 different species throughout his distinguished career. He knew the proper ceremonies, the ritual exchanges of cultural gifts, the careful diplomatic dance that civilized beings performed when meeting for the first time. He had medals, commendations, and even a small trophy shaped like a handshake from the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. None of that prepared him for humans. "Sir, we're receiving a response from the Sol system," reported Chief Communications Officer Delph, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone who had just witnessed something that defied all logic and several laws of physics. Admiral Vashi straightened his ceremonial robes, adjusted his formal diplomatic sash, and cleared his throat in preparation for what he assumed would be a proper first contact exchange. After all, any species capable of faster-than-light travel surely understood the importance of diplomatic protocol, right? "Put them through," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of Zephyrian diplomatic tradition. The holographic display flickered to life, and Admiral Vashi found himself face to face with, well, it was certainly a human. She appeared to be sitting in what looked like a command chair, but the whole scene seemed remarkably casual for a first contact situation. No ceremonial robes, no formal diplomatic setting, just a human in what appeared to be some sort of military uniform, casually munching on something from a small bag. "Hey there," said the human, and Admiral Vashi's brain immediately registered several protocol violations. No formal greeting, no statement of species and origin, no ritual acknowledgement of the historic nature of the moment, just "hey there." "Greetings," Admiral Vashi began, launching into the traditional first contact speech that had been refined over millennia. "I am Admiral Vashi of the Zephyrian Alliance, speaking on behalf of the Zephyrian High Council and the 43 member worlds of our glorious confederation. We extend formal diplomatic recognition to your species and request audience according to the ancient protocols." "Yeah, hold up there, buddy," the human interrupted, holding up one hand while continuing to eat whatever was in that bag. "I'm Captain Amy Kowalski, United Earth Defense Force. Got your distress call about 20 minutes ago. You guys getting your butts kicked or what?" The entire bridge fell silent. Admiral Vashi's mouth opened and closed several times, producing no sound. In 47 first contact situations, no one had ever interrupted the formal greeting. Ever. It simply wasn't done. It was like interrupting a funeral or commenting on someone's molting patterns. Just completely unthinkable. Wait, that is to say, Admiral Vashi struggled to process this complete breakdown of diplomatic etiquette. The proper protocols dictate that we must first exchange ceremonial gifts, establish cultural parameters. "Listen, Vashi, can I call you Vashi? Time's kind of a factor here, right?" Captain Kowalski leaned forward in her chair, and the Admiral noticed she had crumbs on her uniform. "Crumbs? During a first contact situation, your message said you're getting slaughtered. That usually means people are dying right now this very second. So maybe we skip the fancy stuff and get straight to the point." Commander Moran, who had been standing behind Admiral Vashi in stunned silence, stepped forward. "Captain Kowalski, we are indeed under severe attack by a hostile force known as the Void Reapers. Our military forces are insufficient to repel them." "Insufficient, huh?" Kowalski raised one eyebrow. "That's a fancy way of saying you're getting your asses handed to you. How many ships you got left? The casual profanity made several bridge officers gasp audibly. In Zephyrian culture, such language was reserved for either intimate relationships or blood feuds. Certainly not for diplomatic communications with unknown alien species. We retain approximately 38% of our original fleet strength, Moran replied, still processing the humans' complete disregard for proper communication protocols. Ouch. Yeah, that's not great, Kowalski said, pulling out what appeared to be some sort of primitive data tablet. Void Reapers, you said. Hold on. Let me check our files. She started making tapping motions on the device while continuing to eat from her bag. Admiral Vashi watched in fascination and horror as the human appeared to be treating this life-or-death situation with all the gravity of ordering lunch. Oh yeah, those guys, Kowalski said after a moment. Interdimensional jerks with the big scary ships and the planet-eating thing. We've had a few run-ins with them. They're annoying. Annoying? Admiral Vashi's voice cracked. They have consumed 17 star systems. They possess technology that renders our most advanced weapons ineffective. Their harvest ships can strip a planet bare in a matter of hours. Yeah, that sounds annoying, Kowalski agreed cheerfully. Don't worry though, we can probably help you out. When do you need us there? The Admiral stared at the human in complete bewilderment. Where were the lengthy strategic discussions? The careful analysis of military capabilities? The formal alliance treaties that needed to be negotiated and signed in triplicate? You would be willing to provide military assistance? He asked carefully. Just like that? Well, sure, Kowalski shrugged. You guys seem decent enough. Plus, those Void Reaper things keep trying to mess with our shipping lanes, so it's kind of a win-win situation. But what about payment, terms of engagement, rules of conduct, territorial considerations? Admiral Vashi felt his carefully ordered universe crumbling around him. Payment? Kowalski laughed, and it was not a diplomatic laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they find something genuinely amusing. Buddy, you just offered us a legitimate excuse to blow stuff up. We should be paying you. Lieutenant Cortex leaned over to Commander Moran and whispered, Sir, are all humans this casual about warfare? Before Moran could respond, Kowalski was talking again. All right, here's what we'll do. I'll get Admiral Torres to scramble the Third Fleet. Should have them to your location in, probably 18 hours or so. That work for you? 18 hours. Admiral Vashi had participated in diplomatic negotiations that lasted longer than 18 months, and this human was committing an entire fleet in 18 hours based on a 20-minute conversation. The Third Fleet, he repeated weakly. How many vessels would that comprise? About 300 ships, give or take, Kowalski said casually, as if she were discussing the weather. Plus support craft, marine divisions. The usual stuff. Should be enough to get those Void Reaper guys to back off. 300 ships. The entire Zephyrian alliance had started this conflict with 400 ships. This human was casually discussing deploying 3/4 of their total original fleet strength, like it was a routine patrol mission. Captain Kowalski, Admiral Vashi said slowly, may I ask exactly how large is the human military? The human paused in her eating and gave him a look that somehow managed to be both amused and slightly pitying. Admiral, we've got 12 active fleets just in this sector. And honestly, the Third Fleet guys have been complaining they're bored. Bored. The humans were bored. As the communication ended and the hologram faded, Admiral Vashi slumped in his command chair, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of 20 minutes he had witnessed the complete destruction of every diplomatic protocol he held sacred, been casually offered military support that dwarfed their remaining forces, and learned that humans apparently treated interstellar warfare as a recreational activity. Sir, Commander Moran said quietly, what have we done? Admiral Vashi stared at the empty holographic display and wondered the exact same thing. General Krafnog had always prided himself on being thorough. When the Zephyrian alliance faced any military threat, he was the one they called to analyze enemy capabilities, develop counter-strategies, and provide comprehensive intelligence reports. His analytical mind had saved the alliance countless times over his long career. Right now, however, as he sat surrounded by data screens displaying human military records, General Krafnog was beginning to suspect that his analytical mind might be having some sort of breakdown. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, his three eyes scanning the data for what had to be the 15th time. "Computer, verify these human military statistics." "Verification complete, General," replied the ship's AI in that annoyingly cheerful tone that suggested it was enjoying his confusion. "All data has been cross-referenced with 17 independent intelligence sources. Accuracy is 97.4%. Krafton stared at the numbers with growing horror. According to the intelligence reports, humans had been engaged in continuous warfare for approximately 5,000 years, not occasional conflicts, not territorial disputes, not even the usual resource wars that plagued most developing civilizations. Continuous, unending, enthusiastic warfare. "They fight constantly," he said aloud, as if speaking the words might make them less insane. "They fight over territory, resources, ideology, religion, trade routes, succession rights," and he paused, reading further. "They fight over who gets to be in charge of fighting." "That appears to be accurate, sir," confirmed Lieutenant Delph, who had been assigned to help analyze the human data. "According to these records, humans have something called civil wars, where they fight themselves when they run out of other people to fight." "They fight themselves," Krafnog repeated slowly. "When they run out of enemies, they create new enemies from their own population and fight them instead." "Yes, sir, and apparently they're quite good at it." This particular conflict, called World War II, involved something called 61 countries and resulted in approximately 75 million casualties. Krafnog felt his secondary stomach clench. 75 million casualties in a single conflict. The entire population of Zephyr Prime was only 12 million. Humans had managed to kill the equivalent of 6 Zephyr Primes in one war, and according to the records, they called it their Second World War, which implied they had done it before and were apparently planning to do it again. "General," came a new voice from across the tactical center. It was Judge Quintara, the Alliance's senior military advisor, and she looked about as comfortable as someone sitting on a nest of plasma wasps. "I've been reviewing the human weapons development records, and I believe we may have made a terrible mistake." "How terrible?" Krafnog asked, though his tone suggested he really didn't want to know. "They have weapons specifically designed to destroy their own planet," Quintara said quietly. "Multiple types. Thousands of them. They call them nuclear weapons, and they built them for the express purpose of fighting each other." The tactical center fell silent except for the gentle humming of the ship's systems and the distant sound of Void Reaper weapons fire, which was starting to seem almost peaceful compared to what they were learning about their potential allies. "They built weapons to destroy their own world," Krafnog said. "To use against themselves. That's not even the concerning part," Quintara continued, consulting her data tablet. "The concerning part is that they apparently got bored with those weapons and decided they weren't destructive enough, so they built bigger ones. Then they built weapons that could destroy multiple worlds. Then they got bored with those and built weapons that could destroy entire star systems." "Please tell me you're exaggerating," pleaded Commander Moran, who had joined the group and was looking progressively more pale as the conversation continued. "I wish I was," Quintara replied. "According to their own military records, human weapons development follows a very simple pattern. Build something that can kill lots of people, get bored, build something that can kill even more people, repeat until satisfied." "And when are they satisfied?" Krafnog asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "They aren't," Quintara said simply. "Ever. They just keep building bigger and more creative ways to kill things. Look at this." She activated a holographic display showing human military equipment. "These are weapons they use for what they call police actions. Notice anything unusual?" Krafnog studied the display and felt his blood pressure spike. "Those are military-grade plasma cannons, orbital bombardment systems, planetary siege equipment. That's what they use for minor conflicts," Quintara said with the tone of someone who had given up on the universe making sense. "For what they consider small-scale peacekeeping operations." Lieutenant Delph looked up from his analysis station with an expression of pure bewilderment. Sirs, I've found something called military exercises. Apparently humans practice warfare when they're not actually at war. They simulate battles, run training scenarios, and conduct what they call war games for entertainment. Entertainment, Krafnog repeated. Yes, sir. They also have something called military history, which appears to be a popular academic subject where they study previous wars in order to get better at future wars. And they have military museums, where they preserve old weapons and display them for public viewing. They put their weapons in museums, Judge Quintara said slowly, for people to look at and admire. That's correct, ma'am. And they have military parades where they march around showing off their current weapons to crowds of civilians who apparently enjoy watching. Krafnog buried his face in his hands. We asked for help from a species that treats warfare as public entertainment. It gets worse, Delph continued, because apparently the universe had decided that Krafnog hadn't suffered enough today. They have something called professional soldiers, which means some humans fight as their full-time job, and they have military academies where they train children to become better at fighting. They train their children for war, Moran said weakly. From a very young age, apparently. And they have military families where multiple generations serve in combat roles, passing down fighting techniques through their bloodlines. Judge Quintara sat down heavily in the nearest chair. We've asked for military assistance from a species of professional warriors who have been selectively breeding for combat effectiveness for thousands of years. That's not all, Delph said, apparently determined to complete their psychological destruction. I've found records of something called recreational warfare. Humans engage in combat simulations, strategy games, and mock battles for fun. They have entire industries devoted to creating fictional wars for entertainment purposes. Fictional wars, Krafnog said numbly. Yes, sir. When reality doesn't provide enough warfare to satisfy them, they invent imaginary conflicts and participate in those instead. The tactical center fell into stunned silence as the full implications of what they had done began to sink in. They had sent a distress call to a species that had turned violence into an art form, warfare into a career path, and destruction into a recreational activity. Sir, came a hesitant voice from the communications station. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They say they'll be arriving in 6 hours. 6 hours. In 6 hours they would find out exactly what humans considered help to look like. General, Commander Moran said quietly, what exactly have we unleashed on the galaxy? Krafnog stared at the tactical display showing the approaching human fleet and wondered if perhaps being consumed by the Void Reapers might have been the safer option after all. I honestly have no idea, he replied, but I suspect we're about to find out. Outside, the Void Reapers continued their relentless advance, completely unaware that they were about to encounter a species that had turned genocide into a hobby and mass destruction into performance art. This was either going to be the salvation of the Zephyrian alliance, or the beginning of something far worse than anything the Void Reapers could have imagined. Probably both. The hyperspace breach opened like a wound in reality itself, and what emerged from it defied every expectation Admiral Vashi had managed to cling to about civilized spacefaring species. By the sacred molts, whispered Lieutenant Cortex, staring at the sensor readings. Sir, the human fleet it's enormous. Enormous was putting it mildly. The Third Fleet of the United Earth Defense Force consisted of 317 vessels, ranging from sleek destroyers that looked like they had been designed by someone with anger management issues, to massive dreadnoughts that appeared to have been built for the sole purpose of making other ships very, very nervous. But it wasn't the size of the fleet that made Admiral Vashi's antenna twitch with concern. It was the names. Computer, display human vessel identification, he commanded, hoping that perhaps the translation matrix was malfunctioning. It wasn't. Leading vessels identified as UES Righteous Fury, UES Unrepentant Violence, UES Diplomatic Immunity, UES Surely You Jest, and UES Maximum Effort, reported the ship's AI with what Vashi could swear was amusement. They named their warships Surely You Jest and Diplomatic Immunity, Commander Moran said slowly. Are they mocking us? I don't think so, Admiral Vashi replied, though he wasn't entirely certain. I think this is just how they name things. The communications board chirped with an incoming transmission, and Admiral Vashi braced himself for another encounter with human directness. The holographic display activated, revealing a human male who appeared to be around middle age by their species standards, wearing what looked like a standard military uniform, decorated with an alarming number of small metal objects that presumably indicated either rank or kill count. Zephyrian vessels, this is Commander Tom Malley, of the UES Righteous Fury, the human said with a grin that showed an unsettling number of teeth. We got your message about some interdimensional party crashers. Where's the fight?
Where's the fight?
Not what is the tactical situation, or please provide a strategic briefing. Just where's the fight, as if they had come to attend some sort of social gathering. Commander Marley, Admiral Vashi began carefully, we are grateful for your rapid response to our distress call. The hostile forces are currently engaged in planetary extraction operations approximately 47 light minutes from our current position. 47 light minutes, copy that, Marley replied, apparently making notes on some sort of primitive data device. What kind of extraction operations? Strip mining? Atmosphere harvesting? Population collection? All of the above, Moran answered grimly. The Void Reapers consume everything. Planetary mass, atmospheric gases, biomatter. They leave nothing but empty space. Commander Marley's expression shifted, and for a moment Admiral Vashi saw something in the human's eyes that made his blood run cold. It wasn't fear or concern or even anger. It was something far more disturbing than any of those emotions. It was anticipation. Well now, Marley said quietly. That's just rude. Brandon, you getting this? Copy, boss, came another voice from off-screen. Already running tactical analysis. Looks like we got approximately 47 enemy vessels, various sizes, all concentrated around the planet. They're not even maintaining proper defensive formations. Probably because they've never faced opposition before, Marley mused. Hey Quartermaster A, what's our weapons status? All systems green, Commander, replied a cheerful female voice. Plasma batteries fully charged, missile tubes loaded, Marines are armed and extremely motivated. Motivated for what? Admiral Vashi asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Boarding actions. Marley replied with that unsettling grin. See, the thing about interdimensional invaders is that they usually have really interesting technology, and the thing about really interesting technology is that my people like to take it apart to see how it works. You're planning to board Void Reaper vessels? Commander Moran's voice went up several octaves. Their ships are filled with deadly temporal distortions, reality warping energy fields, and hostile entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. I know, right? Marley said enthusiastically. It's going to be awesome. Hey Torres, you hear that? Temporal distortions. Outstanding, came an excited shout from somewhere in the background. Haven't fought anything with temporal distortions since that incident with the Chronarch Empire. Admiral Vashi felt a migraine building behind his secondary eyes. Commander Marley, perhaps we should discuss overall strategy before engaging the enemy. The Void Reapers have proven immune to conventional weapons, and their harvest technology can drain energy directly from our power cores. Energy draining temporal distortions. Reality warping, Marley repeated, apparently taking notes. This keeps getting better. What else can they do? They can phase through solid matter, regenerate damage in real time, and their weapons fire projectiles that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, Moran supplied helpfully. Multi-dimensional projectiles, Marley said with obvious delight. Oh, the boys are going to love this. It's been weeks since we fought anything properly dangerous. Weeks. It had been weeks since they had fought anything dangerous, which implied that fighting dangerous things was a regular occurrence for humans. Commander, Admiral Vashi said carefully, what exactly is your tactical plan for dealing with these capabilities? Marley's grin widened. Simple. We're going to hit them really, really hard until they stop moving. Then we're going to board their ships, take all their stuff and probably set something on fire just because it's fun. That's your tactical plan? Judge Quintara had joined the conversation and was staring at the human with undisguised horror. Hit them hard and set things on fire? Well, when you put it like that, it sounds simplistic, Marley admitted. But you'd be surprised how often that approach works. Plus, we've got some new toys we've been wanting to field test. Right, Brandon? Affirmative, boss. The quantum destabilizers are online, the probability cannons are fully charged, and engineering says the reality anchor systems are good to go. Reality anchors, probability cannons, quantum destabilizers. Admiral Vesey was beginning to understand that human weapons development had taken some very interesting turns since their introduction to galactic civilization. Commander Marley, he said slowly, exactly what kind of weapons are you carrying? Oh, the usual stuff, Marley replied casually. Some things that make other things explode, some things that make reality temporarily negotiable, and a few experimental devices that we're not entirely sure what they do yet. You brought experimental weapons of unknown effect to a combat situation? Moran asked weakly. How else are we supposed to find out what they do? Marley asked reasonably. Besides, that's half the fun. Nothing like a good battle to really test new equipment. Admiral Vesey stared at the human commander and realized with crystal clarity that they had not requested military assistance. They had summoned something far worse than the Void Reapers could ever hope to be. They had summoned humans who were bored and looking for entertainment. Commander, he said quietly, what have we done? Marley's grin became positively predatory. You've given us permission to play with some new friends, Admiral, and trust me, we're going to have so much fun. The communication ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence as 317 human warships began moving toward the Void Reaper fleet with what could only be described as unseemly enthusiasm. Sir, Lieutenant Cortex said quietly, I think we may have made a terrible mistake. Admiral Vesey watched the human fleet accelerate toward what should have been certain death and wondered if perhaps the Void Reapers deserved some sort of warning about what was coming their way. Then again, probably not. The first sign that human warfare was nothing like what the Zephyrian Alliance expected came when the UES Righteous Fury opened fire while playing what could only be described as celebratory music at maximum volume across all communication frequencies. Are they broadcasting audio entertainment during combat? Lieutenant Cortex asked, his voice barely audible over the thunderous sounds of something humans apparently called heavy metal music. I believe so, Admiral Vesey replied, watching in fascination as human weapons fire lit up the tactical display like some sort of destructive light show. Computer, analyze human weapons effectiveness against Void Reaper defenses. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported the ship's AI, and there was definitely confusion in its synthetic voice. Human weapons are achieving unprecedented penetration rates against Void Reaper shielding. Current effectiveness rating is this cannot be correct. What's the rating? Commander Moran demanded. 94%, sir. The bridge fell silent except for the distant sound of human music and weapons fire. 94% effectiveness against enemies who had shrugged off their most advanced weapons like they were throwing pebbles at a battleship. How? Judge Quintara whispered. How are they doing that? Her answer came from the tactical display, where they watched in stunned amazement as human vessels employed combat techniques that defied every principle of civilized warfare. The UES diplomatic immunity was currently ramming Void Reaper vessels while firing quantum destabilizers at point-blank range. The UES maximum effort appeared to be using some sort of probability weapon that was making enemy ships randomly explode for no apparent reason. And the UES Surely You Jest was doing something that made Admiral Vesey's brain hurt to look at. Computer, what exactly is that ship doing? He asked, pointing at the tactical display. The UES Surely You Jest appears to be firing weapons that alter local space-time in order to make enemy vessels temporarily exist in the past, where they are then destroyed by weapons fire that occurred several minutes ago. They're killing ships with bullets from the past, Moran said slowly. That appears to be accurate, sir. How is that even possible? Cortex demanded. Unknown, sir. Human weapons technology appears to violate several fundamental laws of physics. The communication board chirped with an incoming transmission from Commander Marley, whose image appeared on the holographic display. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked like some sort of controlled chaos, with crew members shouting excitedly over the sound of weapons fire and that horrible music. "Hey, Admiral Vashi," Marley called out cheerfully, apparently unbothered by the fact that his ship was currently engaged in mortal combat with interdimensional entities. "Just wanted to let you know, these Void Reaper guys aren't nearly as tough as advertised. We've already taken out 12 of their ships." 12 ships. In approximately 6 minutes of combat, the Zephyrian Alliance had lost 40 ships in 3 days of fighting these same enemies. "Commander Marley," Admiral Vashi managed, "how are you achieving such effectiveness against their defenses?" "Oh, that's easy," Marley replied, ducking slightly as something exploded in the background. "See, most species try to fight these guys using conventional tactics. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, standard defensive strategies. But humans figured out a long time ago that if your enemy is using unconventional capabilities, you respond with unconventional solutions." "Such as?" Judge Quintara asked, though she looked like she was afraid to hear the answer. "Well, their ships exist partially outside normal reality, right? So we developed weapons that exist partially outside normal reality too. Their weapons fire multi-dimensional projectiles. We built shields that exist in multiple dimensions. They use temporal distortion. We built temporal accelerators that make our reaction time faster than their distortions can propagate." "You built weapons specifically to counter interdimensional threats?" Moran asked in amazement. "Oh no," Marley laughed, and the sound made Admiral Vashi's antenna twitch with concern. "We built these weapons to fight each other. The interdimensional stuff was just a happy coincidence. They had built reality-warping weapons for use against their own species. Of course they had." "Brandon," Marley called out to someone off-screen. "How are the boarding teams doing?" "Outstanding, boss," came the enthusiastic reply. "Marines have successfully boarded 4 Void Reaper vessels. They report that interdimensional entity combat is surprisingly refreshing, and want to know if they can keep some of the smaller ones as pets." "Pets?" Admiral Vashi asked weakly. "Yeah, apparently some of the entities are kind of cute once you get past the whole existing partially outside space-time thing," Marley explained. "Oh, and Quartermaster A wants to know if we can salvage some of their reality anchoring technology. She thinks it might be useful for the new recreational combat simulations." Recreational combat simulations. They were planning to use interdimensional technology for entertainment purposes. "Sir," Lieutenant Cortex interrupted, staring at his tactical display, "the Void Reaper fleet is retreating." "Retreating?" Commander Moran spun around to look at the main display, where indeed the remaining Void Reaper vessels were pulling back from the planet and beginning to form what looked like a withdrawal formation. "Well, that's disappointing," Marley's voice came from the communication system. "We were just getting warmed up. Torres, are they actually running away?" "Looks like it, boss. Long-range sensors show them opening interdimensional portals. They're bugging out." "Already? But we haven't even tested the reality inverters yet." Admiral Vashi watched in stunned disbelief as the most feared military force in known space fled from a human fleet that was apparently just getting started. "Commander Marley," he said slowly, "they're retreating. You've won." "Won?" Marley sounded genuinely puzzled. "But we've only destroyed 23 of their ships. There are still over 20 left. That's barely half." "They're leaving the system," Judge Quintara pointed out. "By any reasonable definition, this constitutes a victory." "Huh," Marley said thoughtfully. "Well, that's anticlimactic. Hey, do you guys know where they're going next? Maybe we could catch up with them somewhere else?" The idea of humans chasing the Void Reapers across the galaxy for sport made Admiral Vashi feel slightly ill. "Commander," he said carefully, "on behalf of the Zephyrian Alliance, I want to thank you for your assistance. You have saved our civilization." "No problem," Marley replied cheerfully. "This was fun. You guys should get attacked by interdimensional invaders more often. Oh, and if you ever need help with anything else, just give us a call. We love this kind of stuff." As the communication ended and the human fleet began collecting salvage from the battlefield, Admiral Vashi slumped in his command chair and tried to process what had just happened. "Sir," Commander Moran said quietly, "what do we do now?" Admiral Vashi stared at the tactical display. where human ships were apparently racing each other to see who could collect the most interesting pieces of Void Reaper technology, and realized that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. Now, he said slowly, we pray that humans continue to consider us friends, because if there was one thing this battle had made absolutely clear,